My name is Emily Carter, and I live in Denver, Colorado. For the longest time, I thought I had it all figured out. A stable job as a marketing coordinator, a cozy little home, and a man who I believed would always stand by my side. His name was Daniel Hayes. We met in the most ordinary way possible, through mutual friends at a local coffee shop in downtown Denver. He was tall, kind-eyed, and had this quiet confidence that made him stand out in a crowd. While others competed for attention, Daniel had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room when he talked to you. That was how he got me, simply by listening. For the first few years of our relationship, I felt like the luckiest woman alive. He was patient with my stubbornness, supportive of my career goals, and always willing to make sacrifices for my happiness. I used to tell my friends that Daniel was the kind of man you only read about in novels. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't over the top. He was steady, grounded, and deeply loyal. But as time went on, something shifted. I began taking Daniel for granted. It wasn't something I planned. It just crept in. He would ask if I wanted to go out on a Friday night, and I'd tell him I was too tired. He'd surprise me with flowers, and I'd barely look up from my laptop. He'd share his dreams of one day starting his own small business, and I'd brush it off as unrealistic. Looking back, I cringe at the way I dismissed him, as though his feelings and desires weren't as important as mine. But at the time, I justified it by telling myself I was just being honest. Daniel rarely complained. That was his nature. He absorbed everything quietly, bottling up his disappointments without ever lashing out. But silence doesn't mean indifference. And one day, that silence became permanent. The day he left. It was a rainy Wednesday evening. I came home late from work, exhausted and irritable. Daniel had cooked dinner, spaghetti with homemade sauce, my favorite. I barely acknowledged it as I kicked off my shoes and went straight to scrolling through emails. Can we talk?" he asked softly, his voice almost hesitant. "Later," I muttered, not even looking up. But later never came. When I finally dragged myself into the kitchen, the food was cold, the table was cleared, and Daniel was sitting on the couch with his duffel bag packed at his feet. My heart skipped a beat. "Daniel? What's going on?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice. He looked at me with eyes I barely recognized, calm, but filled with finality. "I can't do this anymore, Emily," he said quietly. "I've tried to be patient, I've tried to hold on, but I feel like I don't matter to you anymore. And I deserve to matter to someone." The words hit me like a blow. I rushed to him, grabbing his arm. "Daniel, no, you can't just walk out like this. We've been together for years. You're overreacting." He shook his head. "No, I'm finally reacting. For once, I'm choosing myself." And with that, he stood up, kissed my forehead gently, and walked out the door. The aftermath. The silence in the apartment was deafening. I sat there for hours, waiting for him to come back. I kept telling myself it was just a fight, that he'd return once he cooled off. But days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Daniel didn't come back. At first, I tried calling him, sending texts, even showing up at his best friend's house. But he had drawn a boundary, and for the first time, he wasn't bending for me. Instead, I began hearing things through mutual friends. Daniel had moved to Seattle, Washington. He'd started working on that small business idea he once told me about, a cozy bookstore cafe near the University District. Apparently, it was already gaining popularity. And then came the hardest part to swallow. He was happy. Watching him from afar. In the age of social media, you can't help but see pieces of the lives of people you once loved. Against my better judgment, I found myself scrolling through his posts late at night. There he was, smiling in front of his bookstore cafe, holding a cup of coffee with pride. There he was, surrounded by friends, laughing in a way I hadn't seen in years. And eventually, there he was with someone new, Olivia, a woman who seemed to radiate warmth and joy. I stared at those pictures for hours, my chest tight with regret. That should have been me standing beside him. That should have been me encouraging him, supporting his dreams, building a life together. But instead, I was alone, left with nothing but memories of what I had taken for granted. The lessons I learned. Regret is a powerful teacher. Over the months that followed, I began to reflect on everything I had done wrong. I realized how much I had dismissed Daniel's feelings, how much I had expected him to bend without ever meeting him halfway. It wasn't that I didn't love him. I did deeply. But love isn't enough when you fail to nurture it. Love requires effort, humility, and gratitude. And I had failed on all three fronts. I started journaling, writing down every memory of Daniel, the good and the bad. I forced myself to confront my mistakes rather than bury them. It was painful, but necessary. And slowly, I began to grow. I focused on being present with the people in my life. I made an effort to listen, to appreciate, to show gratitude. I even started volunteering at a local community center, helping young women build their careers, because I wanted to give what I had once withheld, encouragement. But no matter how much I grew, one truth remained. Daniel was gone. Running into him again. 2 years later, fate decided to test me. I was in Seattle for a work conference, and out of sheer curiosity, I visited his bookstore cafe. I told myself it was just to see the dream he once shared, the one I had brushed off. When I walked in, the smell of fresh coffee and books enveloped me. And there he was, behind the counter, smiling as he handed a latte to a customer. For a moment, time froze. He looked older, more confident, radiating a peace I had never given him. And then I saw her, Olivia, walking up beside him, placing a gentle hand on his arm. They exchanged a look that spoke volumes. He didn't see me, and I didn't approach him. Instead, I quietly ordered a drink, sat in a corner, and just watched. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger or jealousy. I felt acceptance. Daniel had found the happiness he deserved. He had built a life where he was valued and loved fully. And though it wasn't with me, I was grateful he had it. Closing thoughts. Sometimes, the hardest lessons come when it's too late to fix what's broken. I thought Daniel would never leave, that he would always be there no matter how little effort I put in. But love doesn't work that way. Now, as I sit here reflecting, I realize that the greatest gift he gave me wasn't his love, it was his absence. Because in losing him, I was forced to confront my flaws and grow into someone better. I'll always carry Daniel in my heart, not as a painful reminder, but as the man who taught me what it truly means to cherish someone. And though I'll never be part of his future, I'll forever be thankful for the part he played in shaping mine.